I'd like to welcome you back to the Linguistic Landscape and Autoethnography of Place course. This is the 5th workshop video, and this is a particularly important one because we're going to learn about how to analyze or to conduct a linguistic landscape analysis of photographic evidence. So this is where we are in the process. We're entering into sort of the analytical stage of the work. Up until now, we've been collecting data. Now we're actually entering into the process of analyzing the data we have collected. So this is the research question we're actually focusing on. It's 1A. Remember that an autoethnography of place has two different types of data which feed into it. One is autoethnographic, that's 1B, and that will be the focus of our next video, next workshop. But in this video and workshop, we're focusing on 1A. In what ways is your chosen place linguistically, semiotically, and discursively constructed? And we're going to look at how this can be analyzed and presented. So we're going to use an example from Pittsburgh. This is some graffiti mural work underneath the Allegheny River, under Fort Duquesne Bridge by the Allegheny River. And take a few seconds to look at what we're looking at. Think about what you're seeing, perhaps even make a few notes on it, and then move forward with the video. Perhaps even stop and look at this, and we'll think about it. So, as you can see from the research question itself, we have three levels of analysis that we're going to address. There is what I would call a linguistic analysis, a semiotic analysis, and a discursive analysis. And if you watch the earlier videos where we define particular concepts, you'll remember that I said in those videos that I wasn't going to give a comprehensive overview of the theory, but I did want to give a working definition of the different theories that were involved here so that you could conduct an analysis. If you haven't watched those videos for whatever reason, I would suggest going back and going over them because I think you'll find them helpful in contextualizing what I'm about to say. Now, there's another level here that I want to talk about. Linguistic and semiotic analysis is explicit and descriptive. In other words, we're looking at what we're seeing. This is an exercise in seeing, I think, in many ways, but you're describing what you're seeing. The discursive analysis is far more interpretive. It's a jump beyond the explicit and descriptive. Sometimes this interpretive analysis is critiqued. However, I don't see much point to doing a linguistic landscape study if you're not going to jump to the discursive analysis, because that is where the meanings, the interpretations are actually situated. So we're going to go through each of these analyses in itself. So let's start with the linguistic analysis. Linguistic analysis is basically this: notice and document all the written texts found in the areas that you have photographed. So this is a focus on linguistic information. What linguistic information do we have? So you're going to specify and record the genre of all the written text. Is it a sign, an advertisement, graffiti, yard sign, etc.? Identify and record the languages used. The example I'm working with doesn't have different languages, but there's many cases where you will have different languages. Also consider if there's any code switching, uses of two languages. Classify each term in sense of its writer, commercial, governmental, personal, political, and document the specific message presented. And we're going to create a table to summarize this, which we will get to in a second. But before we do, I just wanted to point out what I said before. Please go back and look over the videos we've had. Who are the writers? What types of writing do they engage in? That prior knowledge is all designed to feed into and facilitate this type of analysis. So here's the table I want you to produce. Let's go over the top headings. Placement, where is it? Please add an image. Think about the genre and the message. Think about the language and think about the writer. So for an example, we have here on the post on the side, we have the name Anton Rose, right? You can see a picture it's a name, right? It's graffiti, but it's a name. Language is English. And the writer is a graffiti artist. In this case, it's a graffiti artist sanctioned by the city of Pittsburgh. This is not graffiti done by itself. This is actually sanctioned graffiti. Let's do another one. The United We Stand. It's on the wall behind, as we can see. It's graffiti, social commentary. United We Stand. We'll come back and speak about it in a second. It's in English and a graffiti artist. So I think we are usually very well attuned to looking at linguistic data. It usually stands out for us. But just be comprehensive about looking at all the different types of messages that are linguistic messages that are present. The second level is a semiotic analysis. Before I enter into this, I'd just like to say that I think most people have a lot of trouble with semiotic analysis, or at least a lot of applied linguistic people have trouble with semiotic analysis. And the problem is they don't know how to define a unit which needs to be defined. So they don't see everything that there is to see. So what we're about to do is an exercise in seeing very much. So we're going to analyze all the visual elements of photographic data, specify the name, the symbols, the icons, the images found in photographs. Remember that photographs and images might be a collection of items combined together. I'll speak about that in a second. And also pay attention to the colors, the shapes, the position of each of these different elements. And we're going to create a table to summarize this. So take a second, look at the photograph that's provided here, the case we're analyzing, and just think about what you can see, what you would define as an item, as an element, a visual element. And, take a second to do this, and then we're going to move to an example with the table. So let's look at the headings of the table. Once again, we have positioning, we have the image of that, we have the symbol and the icon, the image, and then we have the color and shape. So the United We Stand. So what do we have here? At the side of United We Stand are butterflies, fluttering butterflies. Did you notice the butterflies when you were doing this analysis? They're adjacent to the United We Stand message. They're fluttering butterflies. We often find these actually in Black Lives Matter. I'll come back to that in a second. Orange, black and white, realistic shape. Above the United We Stand message, there's a 3-point crown with jewels. So it's a yellow crown with red stones. We're going to come back to this as well. Adjacent to the right of United We Stand message, we have another butterfly. We also have a face accentuated African American features. It's white and grey. We have large block writing, so the actual writing itself white, and the we is in yellow, so United and Stand is highlighted with the we in the middle. Adjacent to the writer stand, we have a cartoonish cool dog image with yellow-green lashes. Let's continue this analysis. Front and center, we have a realistic image of Anton Rose, shapes of purple, black hair, silhouette in vibrant red, making it stand out. Notice at the side of the face we have two roses, bright red and green, and the side of the post we have the naming, which just goes along with that image. Okay, now we're going to enter into the discursive analysis, or if you like, the interpretive analysis. We're going to try and make sense of what we've just described. So consider your description of the linguistic data. Consider the specific message present. Think about whether it references a large cultural, societal, or political discourse or a historical event, and try to specify the reference. Consider the description of the semiotic data, and in the same way, think, does it reference a large cultural, societal, political discourse, historical event? Try and specify the reference there, and then summarize the discursive elements of the site. So let's do a little bit of this. So united we stand. So that's a linguistic message. It has multiple sources all the way back to Aesop's fables, political speeches by Abraham Lincoln. It's in the New Testament, and importantly, it's the 26th Street Arch Latino neighborhood, Chicago. It's part of Black Lives Matter. I think in this particular case, we're talking about a Black Lives Matter message of unity in response to policing, economic justice, and racial inequality. Then, of course, we have another verbal message and visual message, Anton Rose. So Anton Rose was a 17-year-old Pittsburgh resident who was shot in the back, face, and elbow by police after fleeing from a vehicle. He was unarmed at the time he was fleeing. So his image, his naming, highlights the need for police training, accountability, reform, a case of police racism and violence. But basically this works through the narrative, the historical event, and the way this particular person was murdered and killed. The butterflies. So butterflies, it's an interesting one. They're often found in Black Lives Matter's artwork. Perhaps a reference Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. It's a symbol of beauty, freedom, and transformation. Black Lives Matter reference to hope for a better future and freedom from oppression, which is why a lot of butterflies appear. The 3-point crown that we saw. So it has Latino and Hispanic gang culture references, but of course it also has a reference to the Holy Trinity, a Christian perspective. The 3-point crown in Black Lives Matter's context signifies empowerment, leadership, and resistance against oppression. Okay, so we entered into some analysis there. Now we want to synthesize all these pieces of information. So the linguistic, the semiotic, and the discursive. And the question we want to answer is, how's the site constructing a meaning for the people who are present at this site? And what is the meaning of this site, or meanings of this site? So for this, you need to write an interpretive description. And this is the important piece, referencing the specifics of your analysis of the constructed meaning of the site. Now, if you remember, when we entered into this particular workshop, one of the things I said is that there's descriptive data and there's interpretive data. For you to make a valid interpretation, you need to build it upon the descriptive information you have. Now, you might be wrong in your interpretation, but you should not be wrong in your descriptive referencing. So let's take an example here of the one that we've just looked at. And let me read you my synthesis. The graffiti next to the Allegheny River under Fort Duquesne Bridge is a public acknowledgement of a racially directed police-related injustice and violence. The graffiti present was sanctioned by the city and came in response to protests specifically about Anton Rose. Public presence for messages supporting unity and acknowledging injustice can function to give presence and a sense of community. The message is overall positive, calling for unity and hoping for justice. The colouring and choice of images is directed towards hope for change rather than violent responses. The messaging present is part of the wider social discourse of Black Lives Matter. And I might add that the reason the municipality allowed this to stand is, if you allow this type of messaging to appear, people within the community, and hopefully the police as well, get a sense of belonging, that their concerns are being addressed, and there is a hope for some change. With that hope in mind, I'd like to show you what happened to this particular image. So at a later date, on top of Anton Rose's face, someone wrote the word thug. Now, the use of the word thug is an attempt to discredit Antoine, to define him as a gang member, and thus justify the violence directed to him. The attempt is to counter the presence of the message of unity, and the fight against suppression. The use of criminalization of minority community members is a very common discursive method used by oppressive regimes from the Third Reich in Germany. The Trump government, criminalization is used to legitimize violence against minority groups and any other group that the governing body doesn't like. And with that, I will leave you, and I'll see you again in our next video, which is going to deal with autoethnographic interactions with the linguistic landscape.